All right, welcome. So again, my name is Ryan Keim here at Champion Industries. I'm the Southeast Regional Manager here, so I have the bottom little pocket here in the country. Our location is in North Carolina. That's where this lovely training center is in our factory. If you do have questions, like Natasha said, we do have somebody who's running camera who can either read them out to me, or I'll leave some time at the end if you have any questions, whatever they may be. Normally, I like to make this a little interactive, but because there are so many people, I'll probably just ramble on the entire time. And if you have any questions, like I said, just throw them in the chat. I'm going to try to have this at about 40 to 45 minutes, just so we can have some questions and get you guys out of here a little early. But we're going to kind of go over all of our product lines, what we have to offer, some new things we have. And I know in presentations, not all the information, especially since it's going to be a lot, is going to be retained. So I like to start with some key points that if you can remember, it'll kind of help you understand what we have to offer and our major selling points for Champion and our equipment. And those two things mainly are any product that we look at today, we take pride in the quality of our construction. So we spend a lot or higher on our parts compared to our competitors because we want you to have the best machine possible. And because of that, we're still price competitive. But just know that the quality of construction we pride ourselves on of a higher standard than most of our competitors. And secondly is we've done a lot of work with engineering to innovate technology. So we've implemented a lot of different things that at the end of the day are going to help your customer. And a happy customer means they're happy with you and you made a good sale. And that's all we want. We want the customer happy and our customers happy. And with our technology, we've been able to do that. So with saying that, I'll get started on our undercounter line. We have a lot of good things that we offer, a lot of new pieces of equipment that are kind of resetting the market on needs for undercounters. So we'll kind of go through these as we go. Now, some universal things on our undercounter that I want you to take note, and it's starting with one of my major points, which was our quality of construction. Our entire undercounter line is going to have major stainless steel components, but also we have dual insulation. So within that, you have an inner panel and an outer panel. And what that means for you in a real life setting is, one, it's going to reduce the noise. These things can get kind of loud. Because of that insulation, we're able to reduce that just a little bit. But more importantly, we're going to be able to retain heat. In our environment and dishwashers, heat is very important. That's the main way to sanitize your plates. So because of this, we want to keep as much heat as possible in this cavity. So because of that dual insulation inner and outer panel, we're able to do that. We are the only ones to offer the dual insulation on the undercounter line. Now, as Christine got in here just for a second, I'm sure you were able to see that I'm not just being a salesman. I'm telling you the truth on we have major components. Our rinse arm are stainless steel. Our tank heaters, all of these major components that you're going to see are stainless steel, which again just means that you're going to have a machine and your parts will last a lot longer than a plastic part. Stainless steel tends to last a little bit longer. We're going to be in there in just about 20 minutes, Ted. So what you're looking at here is the UH130B. This is pretty much our baseline unit, and it's a fill and dump unit, which essentially means that every cycle you're going to get completely new water. It's going to drain itself of that soiled water that's put on the wares that's been released into the tank. We're going to drain that, and we're going to fill it up with clean water from our booster on that final rinse. So you fill it up, you dump it. Personally, it's one of my favorite machines just for the simple fact, like I stated, you're going to get clean wash water every single cycle. Now, there are cons to that I have to be transparent about. This specific unit is not Energy Star because of the fact that we're dumping and filling every single time. So we barely miss that criteria on Energy Star for this specific unit, and I just want you guys to know that. Now, before I move on from the 130B, I do want to notate something that's universal for our entire undercounter line, and that this is field convertible. So just so you guys know, we have some amazing stocking deals that we're offering. So, if you get a pack of 3 or upwards, we're really aggressive on discounting. And I'm saying that, all that to say is our units are field convertible to single phase or 3-phase. So when you get it, it's going to come single phase and you'll have a data plate right here. But let's say that you have a customer that needs a 3-phase unit, as opposed to ordering a completely new unit. All you have to do is take that single phase. This is our front panel. You would just take this off. On the back of that panel, we have a step-by-step guide on how to convert it from single phase to 3-phase, as well as a new data plate showing you the updated amperages with that phase. So you don't have to, raising the alarm saying, hey, we got the wrong voltage. This customer needs this. It's, hey, Whoever does that startup is pretty, I'm sure, knowledgeable enough to be able to convert this. It's a simple conversion that even if they're not comfortable, they could give a call to our service agents that will help assist walking through. But huge benefit on being able to do that. And since I went ahead and pulled off this panel, I want you guys to see the simplicity that Champion engineered on servicing your equipment. We know dishwashers are a high volume, high pressure, a lot of energy and heat are moving. So in the event that, the machine is down, we want to make sure when that service agent or, maintenance team, whoever is going to fix this machine, has the easiest route to do that. So this is our control fuse, but if you open this, you see that it's very simple to get to each and every part. Again, our stainless steel booster heater, like I said, you'll see this universally, so I'll say this a bunch, not because I'm forgetting the point, but I just want to reiterate our quality of construction. So again, the simplicity to get in and out of here. We have our detergent pumps that are also on all of our under counters, so that essentially you just have to drop in our tubes into your chemicals, but we can knock that right open, and in the back there we have our pump. So again, it's just simplicity of being able to service the unit, but you're also able to get a visualization of how simple we try to engineer our equipment. Now, one point I made on the 130B is that it's not Energy Star. So we took a look at that and understood that as a baseline product, we do want to have something that can fit that criteria while not going on the higher end of the spectrum when it comes to price. And we created our UH130B Max, and you'll immediately see the difference. It's a 2-rack system. So we have a upper and lower rack. This simply comes out. That's going to be able to fit your full-size dinner plates as well as some of those taller stem glasses. But at the same time, if you want to wash some larger pots and pans that can fit in this cavity, you can just remove that top rack and you have the bottom rack that's going to extend your clearance in that cavity. Now, within saying that, we do change from a fill and dump style to a fresh water rinse, which is going to be the remainder of the units I talk about. Our fresh water rinse, which essentially means that we're going to skim some of the water per this cycle and reuse it on the next one and then drain the rest. So we're conserving energy because we're not completely filling and dumping that tank. We're reusing some of the water for the next cycle. So that does increase our racks per hour, and it does meet that Energy Star criteria as we go to the freshwater rinse. So that's important to note once you get to the UH130B Max, which again is that 2-rack system that's a freshwater and meets that Energy Star criteria. Now we're going to move up to kind of some of our luxury end, as I like to call them, pieces of equipment. We have our UH230B, which is the freshwater rinse, as I stated. This one does about 40 racks an hour, and excuse me, I forgot to mention this. These two units here do about 24 to 25 racks an hour. You go up to 40 racks an hour because, again, we are conserving that water for the next cycle, so we increase our throughput. And what I like to do is I'm going to start these cycles, so if it gets a little loud here for just a second, just bear with me. But these units that I've discussed thus far are back-of-house applications. The reason being is at the end of this cycle, there's a cloud of steam that comes out of this that you don't want to be front-facing to your operators, which brings me to my next point of our UH330B. Now, this is a heat recovery unit or condensate removal. So at the end of this cycle, we're going to have fans in the back of this cavity that extract the steam from that tank, and we use that to reheat our incoming water. So the 230B down, which is the 130B, 130B Max, and our UH230B all run on hot water utility. So we need 110-degree water coming to this machine to get to 180-degree final rinse. Well, on our heat recovery 330B, we actually only need cold water as a utility, so somewhere between 65 to 75-degree water coming to this machine, because what we do is it'll take a little bit longer on that initial startup to heat up the water, but as we maneuver through our operations throughout the day, that steam that we're recovering is going to assist in bringing the water up to temperature, which, because we're getting rid of that steam, this can be a front of house application. So maybe like a wine bar or a brewery that has, a bar up front, customer facing. At the end of the cycle, because we're reusing that steam, you're able to have this front facing. So it goes from a back of house unit to a front of house unit. Now this cycle is done. If you guys can just focus on this black paint here, you'll see the steam that's emitted. Again, this is why this is back of house, because a lot of that steam we don't want facing the customer. We don't want to diminish their experience. So because of this, back of house. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but right now on my 330B, my fan is doing its work. It's extracting that steam. So when I open on this door and you see this black paint, you're going to see there's a significant difference between the steam coming from this machine and this machine. And sometimes I talk a little too fast, so I'm ahead of my machine. So while that's going on, we're going to talk about the 330B's little brother, and that's the 330 ADA. Now the difference is, as you can see, the height difference. This is ADA compliant to fit underneath some of those certain counters. It still has the same capabilities as the 330B, which is cold water and heat recovery. Now my cycle is done. Focus on this paint here. Now while there's still a little bit of steam emitted, you could see the significant difference between the rollout of the 230B and the 330B. And just so you could see how this bad boy works, and the fans, you'll see the 4 fans in the back of this cavity. Those are what are extracting the steam here. And again, as you look in that cavity, stainless steel. So just keep that in mind. And again, so the 330 ADA is the little brother of the 330B. And now I really want to focus on something that's extremely new to Champion, and it's a UH140B. And now this is where we really start to introduce some technology that you'll see universally as we grow into our bigger categories. But the 140B here, which is not on yet, but we have a new screen here. And what this screen does and visualizes is real-time things as they happen. So example, when you cut this machine on, we all know that it has to fill with water. It's going to tell you that it's filling. It's going to tell you when it's up to temperature. It's going to tell you what's going on. But more importantly, when we have service issues, you have real live-time diagnostics that tell you the problem on this screen. And I'll actually put a pin in that because we're going to go through some of that technology in just a little bit. But the 140B is something that we're introducing it on the undercounters, which we've never seen in this the dishwashing segment. So we're introducing that technology that, if you remember, I mentioned at the beginning, we're really starting to do that universally. But the biggest thing for Champion 2 on this 140B is that it can fit on a 30 amp breaker, which is very important because a lot of facilities have those breaker sizes for undercounters. We're trying to reduce the electrical work needed for your customers. So with this model, we're able to do so. So in a nutshell, that is our undercounter line. We do have one that I was not able to mention. That's a UL130. That's a low temp machine. So we kind of maneuver from high temp, which all the units I've discussed are high temp. Again, we focus on 180 degrees to get our sanitization. Our low temp machine is going to focus on chemicals that use that. Don't have it live, but I do want you guys to note that we do have that available. So I'm at about 15 minutes on undercounter. That's right where I wanted to be. I know we're not going to have everybody have any questions, but if anybody has any quick questions in the chat about undercounters, I'd be happy to discuss them. And while I give you a second for questions on undercounters, I just want to note some things that assist in the operation of undercounters, and that's going to be these stands here. So as you can see, all of our undercounters on stands. One, it can hold as storage for racks or chemicals as need be if you don't have racks under there. But more importantly, it creates a better work environment for those operators. If this was on the floor, that would be a 17-inch difference for where that person has to load this equipment, as opposed to a more normal stand-up tall, even though I'm average height, but that's another discussion, of where this rack goes in terms of how we load the dish machine. So it really assists. But let's just say they don't have the space or they don't want it on a stand. The one thing that I can recommend that's not as big of a space constraint is we have these 1-inch rollers. And the reason we recommend it, again, there's a lot of energy, a lot of heat, a lot of steam, is to be able to pull that undercounter out from its space, be able to clean as necessary or service the unit if we need to. This really assists in that. So if you could go one way or the other, we just recommend the undercounters on something to move it out of the way or have access to behind that. I don't know if it's Ian, so apologies if I'm not saying that right. Do they have built-in water softeners? I'm going to put a pin in that because I'm going to get to that in just a little bit, but that's a great question. So I will have an answer to your question in just a little bit. All right. I don't see any other questions at the time being, but still feel free to, if you think of something, to throw it in the chat and we'll try to address it. If we miss it on the front end, I'll definitely address it on the back end just because our lovely camera person is moving around with the camera for me, so she might not be able to answer all the questions. But that brings us to our door machine line, which is super exciting because that's really where Champion separated itself on the technology side. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but I just want you to know the different products that we have to offer. But as you're looking here, this is our DH6000 series. And this has been the biggest seller for us, especially the unit that you're looking at currently. But the different models that we have are a DH6000, a DH6000 tall, and both of those same models in VHR, which is ventless heat recovery. Now, if you recall, I kind of mentioned that in the UH330B, where we extract that steam and we utilize that to reheat for our next cycles. Well, the VHR on our door machines is the same concept. It also uses cold water utilities, like I said, so you're going to save on the utility side, but you're seeing the VHR cabinet here on this, and it is actually the most sold unit that we have. A lot of the facilities that we work with, this is what they're moving towards, is a ventless heat recovery. I know this is under a hood in our training center, but that's not what it would look like in real life. And as I like to say it, schools are always my example. I love my K through 12 schools. You know, a lot of those hoods above those dish machines that are there have been there since the school was built, whether that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever the case may be. It's expensive to maintain. It's a nuisance to maintain. And you're going to have to continue maintaining it as you move forward. Well, we can show you an upfront savings by going ventless. For one, you can remove any maintenance cost for that hood, but you're also getting a more energy efficient machine. So it just makes sense on the utility side as well as the technology. And if you didn't know, oh, I think I see a question. Sorry, let's see. Mike, those are considered glass washers, our under-counter line. You can use them as glass washers. We specified them as glass washers, so they can be your regular wares or glass washers. If the glasses are, well, actually, I say this regardless, rinse aid assists in them not having those spotty on the glasses. So as long as you have the proper rinse aid, they can be a designated glass washers, which we use them for that quite often. Back to the tall, sorry if I got off tangent for a second, but this difference between a 6000 and a 6000 tall, if you don't know, normally I'd ask this question to see if you could get it right, but the answer is sheet pans. So sheet pans are the Bible in kitchens, as we all know. The tall will be able to accommodate sheet pans, which is what you're looking at here. Now, some things to note, if you remember from the beginning, we're going to have Kristen, or geez Louise, I'm sorry, disregard that. We're going to have you come in here and look. It's the same concept as I've been saying, again, just the stainless steel parts. We have our scrap basket here. But some things to note about Champion and what's the simplicity of it is, you know, designs change, operations change, they may grow, they may want to reutilize the space. When it comes to a door machine, it can be a straight through operation where that rack comes in and comes out the other side, or maybe it's in a corner. Now, we made it and simplified the process so if that operation does change and the design changes from a straight through or corner or vice versa, it's very simple to change the operation of our machine without ordering a new one. You simply just have to take off this rack guide and change it so that the orientation has the rack coming in here and coming out which direction you see fit. Now, I will say if you change it to a corner operation, we have a splash baffle that you would need to order, which just reduces the amount of water that's going to get on the tables in that operation, since this will be completely open. However, it's still a simple change in the field. Now, some things to note about our entire 6000 series line is where we introduced the HMI technology, which is down here. This is a touch screen piece of technology that we use. And again, I'm going to put a pin in it because we're actually going to dive deep into the functionality of this. But this is where this technology is introduced. Some other things that we have on our door machine line that are important, and I'm not sure if you guys sell chemicals or not, if you do or do not, but we have internal detergent pumps on our door line, just like our undercounters. On the door machine, we have the ability to directly tie into chemicals, and you actually control the amount of chemicals being dispersed based on this HMI. So you can control how much or how little you're using per cycle, which over time is beneficial to the customer because they're not tied into a monthly chemical contract, or if they use a lot less than what that contract holds, they're going to save money because they're controlling how much they use it through the HMI. Secondly, a lot of operations have pot and pan machines dedicated. So, that's upwards of $30,000+ for a pot and pan machine. Well, our DH6000 series is dual rated for pots and pans. So we have 4 different cycle times: a 1 minute, a 2 minute, a 4 minute, and a 6 minute. Once you go past that 1 minute cycle, this is a pot and pan machine. So you have dual functionality on this where you can save time and money for your customer for the simple fact they don't have to rely on a 3-comp sink or an agitation sink to get those pots and pans. They can pre-scrap their normal wares or their pots and pans and utilize this machine. So that's our 6000 series in a nutshell. I do understand that, again, I like to use my K through 12. Some of those facilities have a simple machine. They don't need the bells and whistles. They just want something that works, because my lovely operator has been there for 35 years and she just needs something that's going to work. Well, that's where we bring in the DH2000. This is a more VE option that doesn't have the fancy technology HMI touchscreen. This is just a simple on and off machine where you open and close the door and it just works. We call this the workhorse because it's not meant to do anything outside of just run its cycle. So it still has the same concept. We still utilize that high quality of construction, so all major components are going to be stainless steel. It works great, but you're not going to be able to have that technology, so I just want to provide that solution for you. And now we're going to go into the question that we have. So we'll take that pin out for, who was this? Ian, I believe. And that is a water softener. So we do have water softeners available, which is what you'll see here. We have now navigated to pretty much 95% of quotes that we send out are going to have this option. And the reason being is water softeners just tremendously help the entire process of dishwashing. If you have really hard water, not only does that diminish your wash results, but it also makes it a pain to delime your machine. With a water softener, you're going to increase your wash results, but you're also going to make the operator's life easier when it comes to deliming the machine. So I'll say this just to say it. This is the exact same one that Hobart has. The only difference is theirs is private labeled, ours is not. We use the exact same supplier. It's the exact same concept. So we've enabled this as well, and it's been a huge success, not only for getting better results, but like I said, for deliming. Now we do have another type of deliming solution, which is called our ion. Now this is something that comes on our incoming water line as well. There's a little bit different because it doesn't change the hardness of the water, but it does change the quality of the water so that when the machine is being delimed, it assists in that scale jumping off that stainless. So it doesn't improve results per se, but it does help in deliming for those facilities that have really hard water. This is going to assist in the process. And it's actually very simple on how to clean this. In the event of any maintenance needed on the ion, you simply just unscrew one top. This comes out that you can then scrub with like a stainless steel brush. You put it right back in that water line, and that's the maintenance that's needed. And we only recommend that maybe about twice a year to do so. So very simple if you get the ion. When it comes to the water softener, and I forgot to mention this, so excuse me, this only needs palletized salt that goes directly into our basin here, and that's pretty much the maintenance from there. If there are any issues past that, you could just work with our service department for maintenance, but generally not really needed. I see we have a question. Is warranty voided? It is not. That's a great question. It's not voided. If you don't have a water softener, it's not required. However, if we, just to be transparent, if we notice that there's, an inch thick scale on the machine and they've never delimed it and their tank heaters failed, for example, that wouldn't be covered under warranty just for the simple fact it was an operator error and not, deliming the machine properly, which is why we recommend the water softener, because we want to avoid that as much as possible. We don't want to have to tell the customer it's not under warranty so they have a bill coming, but there does have to be some responsibility within deliming. This assists in that, but you'll also see some other ways that were preventative to that once we get a little bit into the the HMI that is on the door machines. So within that, I'm going to move on from the door machines, but I'm going to talk about something first. So if you have any questions on under counters and doors before we move on, please feel free to do so while I'm talking about this next portion, which is finish line installation. It's actually something that I'm extremely proud about. It's something that I helped kind of create about 4 or so years ago, and it's an installation program that essentially assists your guys' life just to make it easier to contract install. So it's an auto quote selectable program for under counters and doors where there's a flat rate no matter where that machine is. So if it's in North Carolina where I'm at, if it's in Texas, California, whatever the case may be, it's one rate where you just select it. You can print out your quote, send in your purchase order to Champion. Our lovely orders team will probably send you about 5 or 6 questions, which are just, hey, what's the existing model? Who's the contact? Where's the address? What's the intended target for installation? And any other factors that we need to know about for the install. And then once that's received, Champion takes on the responsibility of scheduling and processing that installation from there. But the biggest sell point of this is to build confidence for you guys and the customer. When you select finish line installation, we add on 6 months additional warranty to the machine just for the simple fact that we contracted the install, so we know it's done right. It's just another peace of mind for your customer, which we've now made universal to all of our equipment. However, as we get into the larger machines, those are more custom and have a lot more work than just our simple under counters and doors. So those are custom quoted, but the same things apply. There's just not a flat rate. So finish line installation, it's a huge push we're doing, again, for the 6-month warranty and just to build that peace of mind. And I don't see any questions, so we're going to move on from under counters and doors and move up to the lovely rack machines. All right, so we are now at the point where all of our product lines within Champion on the rack line are now called pros. So we have basically a base size of families, and there's 3 different families, all called pros, starting with a 44-inch single tank machine, a 54-inch single tank machine, and a 64-inch 2-tank machine. Now we'll get into the differences of that, and a single tank machine simply means that there's 1 tank, there's 1 set of rinse arms that are going to act, or as the wash arms, excuse me, and there's no separation between tanks. You have your 1 set of wash arms, your final rinse, and that's it. That's going to be your 44 and 54-inch family. And then we have the 64-inch 2-tank, which is what you're going to see here. So that's the separation of, we have our wash, we have an additional wash arm, and then we still have our final rinse, but you're getting a 2-tank extended machine. So because we're going up in our tank size, you do increase the racks per hour as you grow through those families. Now we can talk about different configurations that you have that are universal to all of our lines, and that is we have the availability to do 22-inch pre-washes, which is what you'll see here. So a pre-wash essentially is its own tank that has an additional scrap basket here, so that if, let's just say, an operation isn't scrapping as well or pre-scrapping, we want to make sure that we're separating our soils from our wash tank so that we're getting the best wash results possible. Now, my mother said if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. So I'll be nice about it, but our competitors have a separate pump just for this pre-wash to pump out the soils from those wares. We let gravities do its work and accomplish the same exact task, which means there's less parts to fail within our pre-wash while accomplishing the same thing. So gravity gets its soils. Once this is full, a simple scrap basket comes out. We pull out our scrap tray. We're able to dump this into, a trash can, whatever the case may be. Simply put it back in. The machine does not stop throughout that process as our competitors do because of that pump. We have to make sure that pump is off when we do it. Because of that, Champion doesn't have that problem. Now we also have an industry exclusive 36-inch pre-wash, which Champion's the only one to offer that. So this would be a little bit bigger. You'd have a bigger scrap basket and a bigger pre-wash section. And then we also have front feed. So if you have a corner operation, the rack would enter in directly here. Now I said pro, initially, and I want you guys to understand how we got to the Pro and its progressive drive system. We're the only ones to offer this system, and I'll have Christine come in here and kind of look at that, and that's what this is here. And I want to tell the story of how we got to the progressive drive and why it really makes a difference. So about, I want to say, 10 years ago, before I was at Champion, our lovely leaders at the time and engineering team took a look at the market and tried to understand the differences of all the rack conveyors. And what we noticed was there is a start-stop motion in our machine at the time and our competitors. And what that means is when that rack enters into the dish machine, it's going to go a little bit, stop. It's going to go a little bit, it's going to stop. It's going to go a little bit, it's going to stop. So there's not that constant motion. But what does that really mean? It means that, you know, a glass here isn't getting the same attention as a glass here. You may run that rack through and you're going to notice that some are dirty, so you have to re-put that rack or that wear through that, which means you're operating inefficiently. So we took a look, and I wish I was a good dancer because I would moonwalk for you guys, but we created the progressive drive system that gets this constant motion, right? If you're, you know, moonwalking, there's constant movement of how you're sliding. So because of that constant motion, we found that 50% movement has now increased to 90% movement, which is a huge jump when it comes to efficiency, so that every wear on this rack is going to get the same attention so that you don't have to re-put those wears through the rack because it's all getting attention. So that's the progressive drive, how we came to that conclusion and how it benefits your customer. And lastly, before I jump into the HMI, I want you guys to know the different types of configurations for rack machines. So like I said, we have the 44, 54, 64, we have pre-washes, blower dryers. I'm sure that's a lot to be thrown at you guys, but I want to note that we have a vented machine, which means, you know, it's under a hood like we shown you earlier. Maybe it's direct vented with our vent cowls like you'll see here, so you'll have a pant leg going into the ceiling. Or we can do heat recovery, which is this box here. But, you know, the concept's a little different because I know in the beginning I told you about heat recovery on under counters and doors. There's differences when it comes to rack machines between, heat recovery, which is this box. So it still operates the same. You know, we're going to reuse that steam to heat up our incoming water line. The difference is a heat recovery on a rack machine still requires venting or underneath a hood, which brings me to my next point, which Champion has now implemented the largest offering of our lovely VHR system on rack machines. So that is ventless heat recovery. We remove the need for venting or any hoods above it. This acts as the hood. And we have the largest offering starting from the 44-inch machine upwards of a 100-inch machine can now be ventless heat recovery, which is huge for us. We're able to fit in almost any footprint when it comes to rack machines. Now the difference is, like I said, on the under counters and doors, it's a cold water utility. We still kind of have most of that concept. However, this machine's going to fill on hot water and then operate on cold. And the reason being is because of the size of this tank, if we were to fill it with cold water, it would take substantially longer for this machine to heat up. And we don't want to have your customers have to tell their operators to come in, you know, an hour or two early just to heat up this machine. So we still use hot, operate on cold. Now the biggest pro for me on this machine, because I am a natural genetic, it's in my family's DNA to sweat, whether we're running or sitting down. And if you've ever been in a dish room, you know how hot, how steamy, how muggy it truly gets in there. Sometimes a little unbearable. Well, with our VHR machines, there's a fan on top of this that actually produces cold air back into the dish room. So we've actually gotten service calls where people are telling us that the dish room is too cold because their VHR is putting too much cold air back into the dish room. So that's 65 to 70 degree air conditioning because of how we're able to reuse the steam, pull the heat from that steam and extract cold air back into the room is a really huge benefit on top of the fact that you're going to save energy and you're going to save cost over time. Now, there is a higher upfront cost, of course, because of the technology that we're implementing. However, we're able to show through energy audits, one versus the other, how over the life of the machine on a yearly basis, why it makes sense to get a VHR versus a standard vented machine. And quite honestly, a lot of facilities are moving toward these green initiatives, how can we help our facility save on cost and be more green on our campus or facility, whatever the case may be. Because of that energy savings and the audit and the technology, we're able to show that the benefits of the VHR system. So within that, that is our rack machine line. We're going to jump into the HMI, which I'm extremely excited to show you guys, because this is, my very first point was our innovation of technology. This is really where we start to separate ourselves. I normally have a flight machine one that I can show you on that's a little bit bigger of a screen, but it's conference season, so we're on the rack machine. So hopefully you all are able to see this very well, but we're going to jump right into it. So as you can see, this is a live view of what your operator would be seeing. There's a huge benefit in knowing real-time temperatures. They're easy to read, but this screen is going to tell us a story as well. So these blue lines let me know that my tank is full. If this were moving, that means that my fans are on. There's normally, red lines here that indicate our tank heaters are working. And again, this is just a demo, not a real machine. So we're not going to have the full capabilities. However, you're able to get a real sense of what's going on. Now, like I said, service calls are going to happen. Dish machines are a lot of energy, a lot of movement. And quite honestly, there's a lot of operators that don't care about the machine and abuse it. So the traditional process of a service call when this machine goes down is they call the service, or more, they probably call you guys for selling the machine, saying, hey, this thing isn't working. What's going on? I need somebody out here now. That service agent then shows up. They run through their, 30-step process of, is it this? Is it that? What am I looking for? And that takes time. And with how everything has gone, service agents aren't getting any cheaper. They're getting more expensive. So the longer it takes them to diagnose that machine, the more money your customer's having to spend on those service bills. And that's what Champion took a look at and realized we don't want that. So what you're looking at here is an input screen. Essentially, all of our major components are communicating to this. I like to call it like an iPad, right? It's just simple. But green lets me know that my parts are communicating properly to the brain of the dish machine. Now, if one of these were red, like this, for example, while that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, my clutch is broken, it absolutely lets me know where I can look. So when that service agent comes, your customer can say, hey, my clutch light is out. That area of the dish machine has not been working. That 30-step process from the service agent was now reduced to 2, and that 5-hour bill went down to maybe an hour or 2. And as you can imagine, over the life of the machine, that is thousands and thousands of dollars that your customer will save for the simple fact we're able to immediately diagnose, understand the problem of what's going on. So it's a huge benefit, something that Champion engineered, and is now Champion exclusive with how we present this technology. So we'll go back. One thing I did talk about was deliming, and bear with me. As you'll see this too, this is a benefit that we like to show that, this isn't easily customizable from your daily operator. This is a manager password protected that they're able to go in and tweak certain settings as they find necessary. But we talked about water softeners and we talked about deliming. And I told you earlier that we'd be able to assist, and let me show you how. So this comes preset off from the factory, but we're able to cut on this notification. But the huge benefit is not one customer or not all customers are the same. There's different scenarios, there's different water quality, there's different ways people clean the machine. So it would be difficult for you guys as dealers to know, a preset deliming schedule. So with this, we can actually customize how frequent we want our customer to delime the machine. So if you're in an area that has really hard water, you're probably going to delime a lot more than someone who has or not as hard as water. And within that, we can change it so that every 50 hours, which is machine run hours, they'll get a notification on their front screen saying, hey, it's time to delime your machine. They'll be able to do that based on that. But another customization point is you can extend or decrease the time of how long they want to delime. So let's just say they have really hard water, the scale is enormous on the machine, and they're going to have to extend that cycle. Well, we just put that wash time up to 50 minutes, so it's going to continuously run for 50 minutes to delime the machine. While that's probably not necessary, you do have the ability to do so, and we like to pride ourselves on the fact that this is customizable. But the other biggest thing is, and I don't have it on this technology, so excuse me, when we start that D-line process, traditionally speaking, the customer has to take a lot of different steps to clean the machine, make sure it's right. But most importantly, traditionally, they had to stay until that cycle was done. They had to wait till it was done to cut down the machine, make sure it was off, make sure it's not utilizing water and energy to bills when the machine's not being run. Once you start the D-line cycle on this machine, they can go home. It'll say, hey, take out your scrap screens, make sure they're clear, add in your chemicals, go home. When you come back in the next day, the cycle will not only be completed, the machine will be turned off because we have idle energy on here. When it has not been used for a certain amount of time, the machine cuts itself off. So everybody's happy. The machine's D-line. The operator gets to go home instead of waiting. And when they come in the next day, they can reboot it and everything's ready to go. So huge benefit on the D-line side that we're able to accomplish with this technology. Now, the last thing that I do want to talk about that is an added benefit of this is from the service side as well. We've recently implemented within the last couple of months a preventative maintenance program. Now, it shocked me when we came out with this because we just haven't seen it in the dishwashing world, but we've set it so that about after every 6 months, there's going to be a checklist that can be popped up here by your customer that says, hey, here's a list of X, Y, and Z of parts that are more common failures in this time frame. If you want to prevent any service issues as best as possible, here are the parts to replace. Here's a step-by-step process on how to fix it. And, they go through that checklist and they can check off each thing to complete the preventative maintenance program. Now, again, this is an old one, so that would have led me into another point where I can actually show you guys where we can diagnose the machine and potentially fix it. But we have within here in this technology, let's just say our machine isn't draining, right? There would be a yellow notification that pops up about right here where we could actually click that notification and go through a step-by-step process. It'll say, hey, open your door, look in this area with arrows to specifically point. It'll say, maneuver this part to make sure it's working. Let's just say food debris got on one of our float switches, and float switches just determine how much water or where the water is in the tank. Let's just say one wasn't initiating. Well, this will say maybe there's food or something in that float switch. We go and toggle because it told us where to toggle that float switch. We get the food debris out. There'll be indicators saying, okay, it's working. Now you can go back to normal operation, or hey, this might be a deeper problem. It's time to call service. But the point is, the customer is able to do that. They don't have to call a service agent to do that. It's just another avenue to save time when something goes wrong. I apologize, I can't show you that demonstration because we took my lovely demo machine that shows it, but I do just want to conceptually tell you guys that we have that technology available, which leads me to my last point of the benefit of this is something that we've recently introduced as well, which is called Direct Link. Now, what Direct Link is it's an internet capability where, we've all probably been in kitchens and we've all seen the 50 different clipboards for each piece of equipment that they have to log the temperatures or how it's functioning and things like that. Well, Direct Link is, something that the customers can use from the comfort of their desk to remote in and see the functionality of the dish machine. So they would get their own password, their own username to log in, and from the comfort of their office, like I said, see that machine and how it's functioning and how it's, historically the temperatures have been for the last 30 days, that they can now remove that lovely clipboard and have a downloadable Excel sheet of temperatures from their desk. But more importantly, like I said, from a service side, our service department can remote in to the dish machine from our lovely service department here in North Carolina, wherever that machine may be. And then the experts are able to take a look at the machine and assist in diagnosing and assist in understanding how it's functioning. So the people that work on Champion all day, every day, really have the visibility to help your customer out, again, in servicing the machine, which is what we want for your customer. So it's been a huge benefit. It's a huge push. The only problem with it is a lot of dish machines are at the bottom level in a basement or something. So it might be difficult to get us internet down in that basement, but if you could just get us a Cat 5 cable to the machine, the value that we've added along with the HMI really saves your customer money over time, and it's a huge benefit. So with that, we're going to maneuver into our other room so I can show you one last thing. I am talking a little bit too much. I said I'd get you guys out of here a little earlier, so I'll try to be quick to save you guys some time with any questions, but I do want you guys to see what we have to offer in this space, and that is our Vortex sink. Now, this has been a tremendous hit for us in the agitating sink space. One, it is a little more costly than a 3-comp sink, but it is tremendously more efficient than a 3-comp sink for the simple fact, which you guys will see, of the movement we're able to get in here. But before I show you that, I want to tell you guys the story of how we got here because of how proud we are of this sink. And we used to have what we called a PP3, and we tried to get some chain business. We were confident, proud, and we quickly got humbled because it wasn't producing the results that we thought it was. So we had to take a hard look in the mirror of what's wrong with this sink and how can we, not only we be better, but how can we lead the market with our agitating sinks. And so we spent, and I always get this wrong, so if I get this right, I'll be proud of myself, a CFSD, a computational fluid something. I got it wrong. But the point is their job is, and they specialize in understanding flow movement and how to utilize a space with water and flow movement. So that specialist designed our sink that the entire wash tank is going to be utilized. Our competitors have a natural left to right motion that creates this circular environment. Because of that, you're going to have dead spaces where, food debris builds up or wares get stuck, which means, again, they're not operating efficiently. We want them to operate efficiently. So because of that, we move in a circular motion this way that utilizes the entire sink, which at the end of the day gets you better results. We're in the business of getting clean dishes. That's what this does. And I'm going to have Christine jump in here because when I cut this on, you're going to see how these nozzles create pressure and how we're able to get that movement that I'm speaking about. And sometimes words are just words, so I have to back it by action. So we're going to drop a pot and pan in there. It's going to take a second to fill, but you're immediately going to see that it's continuously moving. So as opposed to that operator who has to scrub that dish hand by hand, or hand, dish by dish, they're able to toss these, let them wash for the amount of time it takes, but more importantly, they're able, to be more efficient doing other things, whether that's taking out the trash or cleaning their combis or, mopping the floors, whatever the case may be, they're able to go be more efficient. So the movement that we are able to create on our Vortex sink is really what separates us. But I do want to notate some things that you're seeing here. We do have a sheet pan rack where the sheet pans can just be set directly into this rack and be washed throughout the sink. You have a utensil basket here so that you can throw some of those in there to get the same exact wash. But something that Champion does that's a little different is our construction, our quality of construction. Remember, I've mentioned that a lot. And you'll see here, it may not mean much. And not only is it aesthetically a little bit better, but you see this single front panel. Normally you'll have individual welds per tank, which over time just means that's the potential to have moisture intrusion, water leaks, holes, etc. Because of this one front-facing panel, we reduce that, and I also think it looks better in my opinion. Within this sink as well, I mentioned detergent pumps. We do have that as well for our sinks. So your chemical supplier can utilize, or your customer can use this without the chemical supplier, which is going to inject the chemicals right into the wash tank. And something else that we do that's a little unique is, we have a pre-rinse here. A lot of people use disposers for their food waste. We'll ask you to send us that collar and we'll weld it in at the factory at no additional charge to you to ensure that it fits in the operation and it's going to work in the field for your customer. So you'll just ship that to our factory here as the sink would be built. Like I said, we'll weld it in. And secondly, I know there's a lot of our competitors that have generic stocked, sink configurations are completely customizable. Not one size is the same. Not every customer is the same. So we want to make sure we're utilizing the space that your customer has with the most efficient and size-oriented sink that we can. So just to put a bug in your ear, because this is my favorite proposal to do, we've talked a lot about sheet pans, pots and pans. If I had an ideal customization or ideal design for pot and pans, I would have a vortex sink that is flanged into a DH6000T VHR. Those heavier pots and pans can get their soils released into the wash tank, and then we can maneuver those into a door machine. So we're kind of having two birds with one stone in that example. Okay. So I wasn't able to get into Byline. We got about 10 minutes, so hopefully we have some questions. If not, I'll assume I answered them all, and I know I didn't, so I hope you guys have some questions. But the last thing that I want to talk about, and we're going to do a little 180 here, is we're not just about dish machines. We are the total dish room solution. So we do have Byline, which is made in the same exact plant, which we find huge benefit because some of our competitors have a dish machine made in one state, tabling made in another state, sink made in another state, and we just hope it fits when it meets at the customer site. We make it all of it in-house. We fit it together. We test it. But Byline is a conveyor system or tabling, as you see here, an accumulator. And we do have engineers and designers that assist in floor plan layouts, understanding the designs of your customer and their needs. So it's not just dish machines. We have conveyor tabling, accumulators, pulpers, which you'll see over here for food waste. We are the total dish room solution specialist. An hour just simply is not enough time for me to talk about this. So I'd be happy to schedule another one to talk about it or dive a little more deeper in. But I want you guys to know that we do have this available for the total dish room solution. So with that, we got about 9 minutes. I would love to open the floor for any questions you guys have, and if not, we'll get you out of here a little early. And these don't have to be in the chat. They can be, just asked out loud now that we're, I'm kind of done. So we'll see. Okay. I guess I answered all of them. I guess I did my job.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's me. I was just going to see if anybody had any. And if not.
Hey Ryan, it's Ian. Just a quick question.
Yes.
It's pretty complex, but maybe we could simplify it down into like an elevator pitch. Sure. If someone is, specified, they've always used Hobart, and obviously people want to always use what they've used previously. What's the 3 things we should tell them why they should consider moving from Champion to Champion?
That's a great question, and I get that question a lot, so thank you for asking. So I look at it as, what is the customer's pain points? Where do they have problems? For us, what we noticed is, Hobart has Hobart service, and only Hobart service can work on the machine. Champion has multiple service agents in all over the country that customers have their preferred networks that they like to work with. We're happy to accommodate that. Our goal is to get clean dishes, not to service your parts. And what I like to say is to any of my end user customers is, dish machines are booster heaters, pumps, thermistors. In theory, it's all the same, right? But if you were to go do homework and research parts pricing on Partstown, for example, you'll see that Champion's booster heater, is 100% less than the Hobart booster heater. And I'm not making that up. That's just factually speaking on Partstown, which is why I say do the homework. So, again, that's just money over time. Secondly, what I'll say is, initially, I had talked about quality of construction. We like to think we're right behind Hobart, but if you were to go look at our drains or our stainless steel manifolds, I'd like to say, look at the difference. Our major components are going to be stainless steel, which, like I said, is going to last over time compared to the counterparts of our competitors, which have plastic manifolds. So if you just take a look and deep dive into the construction, you'll really understand the difference between us and them. And then from there, post-sale, when service is involved, who do you think you're going to save more money using, or who's going to be less of a hassle when, there's a price difference and we're not held to Champion service that's trying to make money. Whaley's the big one that I like to use. If you like Whaley, for example, then you can use Whaley and trust in Whaley as opposed to, you know, someone working on their own machine that they want to hold close. And thirdly, I'll say we've implemented something that I've actually helped with as well, which is training staff. I will train your customer staff on how to fix their own equipment. So on that initial purchase order, you know, we'll say, here's a spare parts kit on your purchase order. We'll send you to training. So you don't even have to call us. You can just fix the machine yourself. Our service manager goes all over the country training people on their machine. I implore you to see if Hobart will do that. I think they're starting to maneuver that way because of us doing that. But it's been a huge success because we just want your machine running. I don't want to make money on parts. I want you to be able to be confident in your machine. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? All right. Well, we got about 5 minutes. I really want to thank you guys for your time. Again, my name's Ryan Keim, here to help at all. I can send my contact if needed. Call my cell at any point. We do these virtual trainings all of the time. So if there's something I may have missed, something you want to dive a little deeper into, or maybe you want to bring an end user to one of these to kind of show what Champion has to offer, we are happy to do that at any point. So please feel free to reach out. On the same token, again, we do help with designing, whatever the case may be. We're at your service to help. You know, I hope from this you're able to see what we have to offer so that we can grow with you guys. We're excited to be in the group now. We're excited to be able to give you guys some deals to, you know, sell more Champion. We're pushing for Hobart. We're trying to overtake them, and every day we're working hard to do so in the market. So again, thank you for your time. If there's nothing else I can help with, and look forward to working with you all as we continue to push the brand.
Yeah, great job, Ryan. Really,
you,
really
Ryan.
comprehensive.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Natasha, over to you.
Yep. All right. So, Champion, if you're done, you can go ahead and log off. And I appreciate your time very much.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to go over some of our promotions that we've got going on currently, and just kind of speak to the team momentarily. Thank you again, Ryan.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice Friday and enjoy your weekend.
You too.
Is it just me or is it hot in here? Oh, they can still hear me.
Okay, just kind of showing everybody kind of as usually as I do at the end of the meetings, the promotions we've got going on right now, and let you know about a couple that are coming up. Even though GET wasn't here today, they are going to start a promotion with us. It'll either start at the middle of September or the beginning.